up, YouTube? I am your host, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, back in here with one more video. All right, guys, back in here with Jordan Peterson, okay? The name of this video that I got this from is called A Billion Wicked Thoughts, all right? The person who sent it to me, shout out to my Patreon, said, "This is what women find attractive." From Jordan Peterson. I said, I gotta look and react to this. So without further ado,
book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts that was written by a bunch of engineers at Google, and they were looking at billions of Google searches. And you know, there's no shortage of pornography on the internet. And there's much less by proportion than there was when the internet was first invented. And it's so interesting because it actually turned out that one of the things that drove the development of the internet and the technology was the proclivity of young men to search out sexually provocative images. That was what was at the forefront of the development of the net. It's extraordinarily interesting. They were motivated to use it for that purpose, and that provided the platform from which it emerged. Amazing. Anyways, the Google engineers looked at pornographic search processes and then segregated male searches from female searches, and what they found was that the males searched out images. Surprise, surprise. No one considers that, you know, particularly interesting. But
that's just because like video wasn't a thing back there at the start of the internet, or it would have been video. Let's move on.
Females searched out literary representations of pornography. It was written, and so I can give you an example of that. If
really?
You know about Harlequin romances, does everybody still know about those? Anybody not know about those? Okay, well, they're mass market romances, and of a very stereotypical type. And the original ones were pretty harmless in terms of no violence and no real sexual content. But that was 40 years ago, and they've differentiated tremendously, and now there's hardcore Harlequin romances, and with particularly garish covers, and then there's the old, you know, more tame, basic sexless and aggressionless romances where everything is implied and not explicit, but the explicit ones exist.
Literary, really.
So they did a plot analysis of the typical pornographic female fantasy. Well, and it's so comical because engineers did this, and social scientists would never do this because they'd be probably too concerned about the ethics of it or some damn thing. But engineers, you know, they'll just plow ahead with no concern whatsoever for such things, and they actually discover things that way. And so they discovered the basic plot of the female pornographic literary product. And they identified, so basically what happened was that a innocent, well-meaning, and attractive young woman encounters a male who's a bit of a monster. And the monster, there's 5 types of classic male monster. For all you males who want to know, this is what you can become. Vampire, that's a good one. Werewolf.
What?
Billionaire, pirate, and surgeon. Okay, so that's very interesting because, well, first of all, there's a dominance thing. Now you're actually blushing, you know, you're actually blushing about that. That's very, very funny. So, sorry to point it out, but it's so comical, you know. I know, it's so funny. I was reading this, it was just cracking me up. I thought, oh my God, really? Pirate, vampire, oh, that explains it.
I think I want to be a pirate billionaire. Yeah, right? That sounds pretty dope if I can just combine those two. Jokes aside, though, that is fascinating. That's super interesting. What he said is that what they found is that what women find attractive, in at least from a literary perspective, were these men that are monsters, right? So pirate, werewolf, billionaire, surgeon, right? Like so the surgeon obviously is not a billionaire, obviously is not, but the other ones definitely are, right? So I think that's interesting, that it's these monster characters that they can tame, and that's something that they long for, because I think the purchases of certain types of items or the Google searches of certain types of items can generally, you can glean for that data generally what people are interested in. But also as well, I think it will also be interesting if they were to do something like that now, because at the forefront of the internet, let's say like there was socioeconomic divide of who was actually using the internet, as opposed to right now, you'd have a lot more people with access that can look for it. And if they split it out from a socioeconomic or a racial, cultural, Google's got information on everything, everything. So I'm sure that they could do that right now. I'd be interested to see what they find, if that, what they found, this monster, right, like archetype is still the same at lower socioeconomic, but from a common sense perspective, it absolutely is, right? Like the idea of the aggressive alpha male, right? Like, although you get some that, don't, act like that they don't want it, but then, you start to talk about the characteristics within it and they're like, yeah, I want that. You see what I'm saying? Like, but this over aggressive monster type that in their mind, their fantasy is, how do I tame that monster or get him to stop focusing on war and aggression and to love me, right? Like, it's very, very interesting and fascinating. But let's get back in there, see what else that he has.
What about all these damn vampire shows, right? They're so popular online. They're so popular on Netflix. Oh, yes, and then there's the werewolf. There's nothing sexier than a werewolf, apparently. But, I mean, so there's predatory dominance that's implicit in that, right? With the billionaire, it's more abstract, but clearly that's an indication of very high success in the male dominance hierarchy. So, but there's this desire for aggression that's in that, a real aggression. Right, and it's not surprising to me at all. It makes perfect sense. But the basic plot is that the woman encounters this mysterious and aggressive male and tames him. That's the female hero myth, as far as I can tell. It's Beauty and the Beast. And so it's because, well, there's no fun in taming someone who's already tame. And what makes you think you really want someone who's tame anyways? There's no interest in that. Plus, when chaos manifests itself, what makes you think that someone tame is going to be good for anything? And it's a real question. And so
that's a great question. Did you guys capture that? He said, when chaos manifests, what makes you think that a non-aggressive person is going to be able to protect you? That's essentially what he's saying. So I think from an evolutionary perspective, there's a reason why women like the stronger, at least outwardly portraying, more aggressive men, right? And, some of y'all that, lower socioeconomic backgrounds, the thuggos, right? They are attracted to the hood generals, right? And that's what they could find attractive if their minds are not set in a way to disassemble how risky their lives could be going with that guy, but that is in their mind what they see, and that's the ones who they see making all the money, and that's who they establish the power to. So that's where the viscosity might go to. You know what I'm saying? In those instances, but what he's talking about with the research that the Google engineers found, I think is really fascinating. Let's just see. It's a couple of more seconds. Let's see what else he has to say. Let's get back in it.
That aggression is absolutely vital. It's absolutely necessary. But because it's incredibly dangerous, which of course it is, it has to be civilized. And so what happens is that the archetypal female in these pornographic romances seduces and tames the aggressive male. And that's her encounter with chaos. Now it's more complicated. Of course, females, they're more complicated, and that's exactly how it is. And it's no
Yo, he just said a slice. Of course, females, they're more complicated. Shout out to Jordan Peterson. I appreciate the young scholar and that knowledge. Listen, he's essentially saying this is why nice guys finish last. That's exactly what he's saying. You understand what I'm saying? This is why dudes who do not command. See, here's what it is. I think it's anywhere from being have an aggressive personality type. But you do it in a way that you command respect. You're not aggressive with anger. You know what I'm saying? But you could be aggressive with commanding respect. You could be aggressive with attaining your passion in life. You understand me? You could be aggressive in making sure that the energy force around you is making your cup full as opposed to depleting your cup. You understand what I'm saying? So it could be, it could divulge into other acts within your life. But this is why if you're a pushover type, personality type, if you allow people to come into your circle and disrupt your aura, you understand me? You allow your boss at work to talk to you in a certain way, and you respond emotionally, giving in to the bullying, right? Like allowing things like that to happen and not staying in a mindset of stoicism and respect. If you don't do that as a man, you are not the apple of their eye. That's essentially what he's trying to say. What I think is also really interesting in this, like, you know, I was thinking back to like different literary works of art. Let's say it. Let's say it like that. And what's the name? That sex novel. God, what's the name? I gotta Google it real quick. Hold on.
A few moments later.
50 Shades of Grey. I had to Google it real quick. The name of it was slipping me. 50 Shades of Grey. It's interesting. I believe that dude was well off, like millionaire, billionaire, but that was such a well-sold book because of the aggressiveness that he showed and the idea of how that dominance and her want to be a part of this dominant structure is what made that book fly off the shelves and made that book become a movie. Anyway, fascinating video. This is my first time seeing it, so hopefully you guys enjoyed my reaction to it. Hopefully you enjoyed his original words. But let's keep this education engine going. Mediocre tutorials and reviews at gmail.com. That's my email. Feel free to hit me up. We have a Patreon as well, where we go in depth regarding these discussions. Link down in the description box down below. All right? Until next time, you two. Peace!